How do you think the Brexit negotiations are going? Are you getting what you voted for? What do you think should happen now? These are the questions we've been asking people in the streets since February. I'm part of a youth-led campaign to shine a light on the fact that what the government is doing with your vote is not in your interest or that of your kids. We're mobilizing young people of all backgrounds to make their voices heard so that we can take back control of our futures. Unlike many Remainers, who just act like they all studied EU law themselves, I actually did. It was the failure of the Remain campaign to say anything that Eurosceptics would hear that made me realize I had a responsibility to get involved in January 2016. Can you imagine having studied EU law and watching the then Prime Minister, David Cameron, make all his threats about the dangers of leaving the single market, but never once explaining what the single market actually is? Can you imagine watching him fail to provide the obvious answer to the claims made about EU immigration, namely that it was Cameron's own government that chose not to enforce the EU's restrictions on immigration? So I started making videos explaining what politicians and the news were failing to. I even wrote EU questions. Just ask. On a t-shirt and stood in the centre of Birmingham for a couple of days. But the Brexit vote still happened. Nigel Farage was a great help to me after that. Calling his show on LBC allowed me to expose the lies he told during the campaign. I got him to directly contradict his claims about EU immigration, and in February I debated him live in the studio. Now, if the man behind Brexit can be made to admit the falsehoods of the referendum campaign by a millennial, maybe we can do more. That's why several of us have left our jobs and university degrees to secure a better future. Bank of England Governor Mark Carney: Brexit has already hit UK GDP by up to £40 billion. The only way Brexit will stop is if a people reject the deal presented to Parliament in October. That requires a national conversation. Having had most of my Brexit discussions online, it is such a relief to talk to real Brexit voters in the street. Unlike many people online, these are reasonable people whose guiding star is what's best for the country. So, if they learn new information, their opinions change. From what we've gathered, people wanted three main things: control over our laws, a better NHS, and to be financially better off. What surprises them is that we respect and share those wishes. It was never explained that it's in our interest to have similar laws to our closest and cheapest trading partners, as it reduces costly barriers. So when I have pointed this out to people who wanted the UK to make its own laws, they have been extremely rational and accepted that. John Murphy flies the European flag outside his home near the border village of Fork Hill, County Armagh. An abandoned shop is seen in Mullan, County Monaghan. The building was home to 4 families who left during the Troubles. The town was largely abandoned after the hard border was put in place during the conflict. Mullan has seen some regeneration in recent years, but faces an uncertain future with Brexit on the horizon. Mervyn Johnson owns a garage in the border town of Pettigo, which straddles the counties of Donegal and Fermanagh. I've been here since 1956. It was a bit of a problem for a few years. My premises has been blown up about 6 or 7 times. We just kept building and starting again, Johnson said, laughing. We just got used to it. The hard border, really? But now that it's gone, we wouldn't like it back again. Farmer Gordon Crockett's Coshquin Farm straddles both Derry/Londonderry in the north and Donegal in the Republic. At the minute there is no real problem, you can cross the border as free as you want. We could cross it 6 or 8 times a day, said Crockett. If there was any sort of obstruction it would slow down our work every day. A defaced "Welcome to Northern Ireland" sign stands on the border in Middletown, County Armagh. Potter Brenda McGinn stands outside her Milan, County Monaghan, studio, the former James Boyle and Shoe factory, which was the main employer in the area until it shut down due to the Troubles. When I came back, this would have been somewhere you would have driven through and have been quite sad. It was a decrepit-looking village, said McGinn, whose Busy Bee Ceramics is one of a handful of enterprises restoring life to the community. Now this is a revitalized, old hidden village Union flag colors painted on curbstones and bus stops along the border village of new buildings, County Derry/Londonderry. Grass reflected in Latone Loch, which is split by the border between Cavan and Fermanagh, seen from near Ballinacor, Northern Ireland. Donegalman David McClintock sits in the border cafe in the village of Muff, which straddles Donegal and Derry/Londonderry. An old Irish phone box stands alongside a bus stop in the border town of Glaslock, County Monaghan. Billboards are viewed from inside a disused customs hut in Carrickcarnan, County Down, on the border with County Louth in the Republic. Seamus McQuaid takes packages that locals on the Irish side of the border have delivered to his business, McQuaid Auto Parts, to save money on postal fees, near the County Fermanagh village of Newton Butler. I live in the south but the business is in the north, said McQuaid. I wholesale into the Republic of Ireland, so if there's duty, I'll have to set up a company 200 yards up the road to sell to my customers. I'll have to bring the same product in through Dublin instead of Belfast to disuse Great Northern Railway line and station that was for customs and excise on the border town of Glenfan, County Leitrim. Alice Mullen, from Monaghan in the Republic of Ireland, does her shopping at a former customs post on the border in Middletown, County Armagh. I'd be very worried if it was a hard border. I remember when people were divided. I would be very afraid of the threat to the peace process. It was a dreadful time to live through. Even to go to Mass on a Sunday, you'd have to go through checkpoints. It is terribly stressful, said Mullen. All those barricades and boundaries were pulled down. I see it as a huge big exercise of trust, and I do believe everyone breathed a sigh of relief. A bus stop and red post box stand in the border town of Jonesborough, County Armagh. One Brexit voter, when faced with the realization that Brexit simply means giving up our vote and just copying the laws of the EU, as Theresa May recently admitted, called it disgusting. We've also met a couple of Brexit voters who never actually wanted us to leave. They just wanted to express their dissatisfaction. I'm pleased to say that I've only met 2 people who were of the chuck 'em all out variety. Your average Brexit voter just wanted things to get better. And they're almost as angry as we are when they look at what the government is doing with their Brexit vote. So if neither Brexit voters nor Remain voters are getting what they voted for, calling this the will of the people is a stretch. All we're asking is that those who voted to take back control keep that control and demand, with us, that the people be the ones who decide whether the government's Brexit deal is good enough. The people should decide whether the government should be spending its resources scrambling to plug the gaps Brexit creates, trade negotiations, copying EU laws, doctors, supply chains and so on, or whether it should be fixing the problems we already face here at home.